Okay, my friends, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this final course percentage column a little bit more carefully. Because right now you've got really nice data where you've got ages correlated with the final course averages. And that's awesome, and we're going to look back at that as we go through these questions. But what I want to look at right now are just the final course percentages. Now, they're out of order. You could, if you wanted to, you could sort them. You can go up to your data tab and then sort them. And you can take a look at them in order. The lowest grade is an 8, and the highest grade is 100, and looks like 107. And that's fine, but that's not necessary because I'm going to show you a graphical way of looking at this data. So first thing you do is you select the entire column, which is just click on B, and then go up to Insert. And over here at the Recommended Charts tab, don't pick Recommended Charts. I want to show you a really cool new option that Excel added a couple years ago. It says Statistics Chart. Now, you can look at the options. They give you more than one option. But we're just going to use the very first option, which is called a histogram. Now, here's the one that pops up when I drop in your generic histogram. Okay, I'm going to extend these out a little bit to make it a little bit more obvious. Maybe that's a little too wide. And I want to give it a nice title. These are the final averages in percent for Sean's math students. I'm spelling challenged apparently. Students, there we go. And then I'm going to put in parentheses under here sample of 96, because there are only, if you think about it, there's only 96 students in this sample. So I'll make that font a little bit smaller. Okay. All right, so that's a pretty descriptive title. I still want to put, I think, axes titles on here. So down here, these are going to be the final averages. My God, I can't spell anything correct today. I apologize. Averages, there we go. And let's make that a little bit larger, I think. Okay, and then we'll make them bold, maybe. And I do, you know what I'm going to do? In a second, I'm going to negate the need for this axis, so I'm going to delete that axis. But here, I'm just going to put as an axis title, this is the number of students. Let's increase the font size on it. I just learned most of the time with graphs in Excel, you can rotate these axes, but for some reason, you can't with the histogram. It's kind of annoying. It's all grayed out. You can do that with other kinds of graphs, but not a histogram graph. So anyway, that annoys me. So what instead I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add my data labels on top of the bars, and that makes it a little bit easier to see what the data is. All right. So speaking of what the data is, let's chat through what we're actually looking at here, okay? Because this might be a little bit daunting at first. Let's look at the horizontal axis first. So if you look down here, you've got these weird little symbols. You see some brackets, you see some parentheses, and you see some more brackets and parentheses. What those are actually ranges. And let me explain it to you by actually sorting the averages over here. Let me sort this data ascending. Yep, please expand the selection. That's fine. Okay, so this first bar right here, it's got an 8, 22. Now, what that means is it's counting how many students finished with a final average in my classes between an 8 and a 22. And if you look up here with me, you can see there they are. There were 3 of them, an 8, a 14, and a 21. Okay? Next bar, 22 through 36. There was nobody that had an average between 22 and 36. Now, some of you might look at that and go, wait a minute, Sean, that 22 and that 22, how are they different? And this is a small, not super important point, but do you see how the 22 on the left has a bracket and the 22 on the right has an open parentheses? That means the 22, if there is one, would have been included in the left bar and not the right bar. If there was a 22, it would be placed in this one, but there wasn't. Let's move on. 36 through 50. So if I look over here, I see these. Aha! We found one. Here we go. There are 3 between 36 and 50. A 40, a 43, and that 50. And that 50, therefore, goes in that third bar. It does not go in the next bar. The next bar goes from 50 to 64, but it does include that 64. So hopefully you can see what's going on here. It's telling you the number of students there are between the course averages at the bottom. Now, when I dropped this histogram in, it created 4 bars. You can change that, which is really, really slick. You can right-click on the horizontal axis and hit Format Axis. And then if you wander over here to the right, you can actually change things. Now, what I like to mess with is the number of bins. A bin is just how many of those bars you see. I'm going to change it to 10. Let's make 10 bins or bars. That's what it would look like with 10. Let's make it 11. Okay, that's what it looks like with 11. Let's make it 12. I'm just goofing around at this point. And you'll notice that as I'm changing the number of bars, there doesn't seem to be much of a, can I go 25? I can. Every time I change the number of bars, the overriding shape of this distribution is not changing. If you look at it, it's got this long tail out to this side, and then it has a hump right here. And that was true when I had 8 bars or when I had 25. Let's set it to 15 bars, bins, whatever you want to call it. And let's chat about why the difference in the average and the median. There's 15. Okay. Let's start with the median first. Now we know there are 96 data points in this graph. And since there are 96 data points, the median has to be halfway up from bottom to top or top to bottom. So I'm going to go top to bottom just because there's so many data points up here at the top. There's 8 at the top, plus 18 more gives us 26, plus 24 more gives us 50, which means the median has to be somewhere in this bar. Because with 96 data points, the median is going to be halfway up. Halfway up from 96 is going to be between the 48th and 49th data point, or halfway down in this case. So that means the median has to be somewhere between 87 and 94, which if you compare it to the answer you got a couple questions ago, is exactly what you found. Now the average, as you found in the previous questions you just did, was not in the bar from 87 to 94. It was in the next bar over from 81 to 87. Why is that? I don't want to get too much into this right now because we're going to get into it a lot in Math 243. But when you think about an average, and I may have talked about this in class in the videos, I'm not sure. The average of a data set like this is found where you would balance this. If this were a tray of cookies, for example, if these bars represented cookie stacks and this horizontal axis was a tray, where would you have to place a balance point to balance the tray? And it might not be super easy to see, but when you place your finger in the median bar, there's too much weight to the left of it. It's too much weight too far out. So you have to move your balance point a little bit to the left to balance it effectively. Now, how far to the left? Again, we'll get into that more in 243, and you actually just calculated it by calculating the average. But this is why you have a difference between your average and your median. Your median doesn't care how far down those lowest values are down there. And that's what you have to think about in terms of averages versus medians. Averages tend to chase extreme values. Medians don't care at all about those extreme values. In fact, you could take those lowest 3 values, if it made sense, and scooch them off the graph to the left, make them negative. The average would have to keep moving left to take care of that. The median would not budge one bit. And we're going to talk more about that in Math 243, promise. All right, now that you know that, move on to the next couple questions.